Veronica.
Are you, Liam?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. It is a weird time. And you?
Yes, it's a very almost a literary. We're living fiction, so it's almost like we're characters in a work of literature or even a science fiction movie. Yes, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Now, well, first let me ask you how old you are, if you're willing to share that.
I'm 57, so I was born in 1963.
Okay, all right. I was born in 68, so we're close to the same age. And where were you born? Where were you brought up?
Born in Mexico City.
Okay. And when did you come to the States?
I came in 1977 because my father it was kind of a crisis because my father had worked for this company, thread company, for a long time, and it was nationalized. So all his we call it in Spanish antiquity, which is
Uh-huh.
a type of Spain laws. But so then a former boss of his from Scotland offered him a job in Connecticut,
Oh,
and
wow.
so my mother was born in El Paso, Texas. She was also American. We all moved to we got, you know, like we got the green card, we at that time, and we moved to Connecticut.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Connecticut. Wow, that's a big change.
a very rough time because my parents were very absent-minded. So we moved to a neighborhood that was not exactly, it was almost like a working class neighborhood, which is fine. Actually, I come from working class from the side of my father in Venice, Italy. But the problem was the racism. So we were actually one time, we were shocked because we were very protected, you know, living in Mexico, middle class, to this neighborhood where I was walking from the bus stop and they were throwing stones at us and saying, "You dirty Mexicans, get the hell out of here." And so it was a shocking experience living in Connecticut, especially also the drugs. We saw drugs use. I was 14, a lot of violence in the high school. There were police in the schools. And one time by mistake, I sat on a table that was a wrong table because it was the African American table. So then the African, I said, what? They actually almost hit me. What are you doing here? Get the hell out of here. And so I saw a lot of violence, racial violence in where we're living. And it was actually affected me so strongly that I developed anorexia.
Oh, wow. My
It was
goodness.
at age 14, from very protected environment in a private school, French school in Guadalajara. I was almost gonna start crying because of the shock. To
Yeah.
this very isolated environment because we're different in Mexico, really. We are, and that's the part we have to realize how different societies are. With the virtual use, with the electronics, we get a sense of this platitude, of this flatness, that we're all the same, and we lose this sense of historical distance and also of cultural distance. And so we actually live in a fake news constantly by having all these images to us, which are all flat and put things at the same level. We don't realize that there's these extremely radical differences. From the point of view of the art, not only in terms of how things look because of the changing light in every place, that's another thing about how colors are radically different in every place, but how things are absolutely different in different cultures and societies. So coming to the US, Connecticut, from being in Mexico where I was, this social network where I was very protected, very intense, it's to this isolation, racial clashes. Oof, it's actually it was a traumatic experience. So to the degree that I developed anorexia, I was about to die actually from that.
Right.
You know, and I actually went through what I did is study. I started studying in this school. It was an amazing high school, very, very well known because, you know, Northeast US, it's very different from the South.
Oh, of course.
There are, and so that was a very advanced school. I had incredible teachers. So first of all, my father, I introduced to art because of my father from Venice. It's in the whole family. It's in the city of Venice. So I was always in art classes since I was young. My father was an artist. He studied with a very famous Costa Rican sculptor, Zúñiga, who's very, very famous. Actually, his sculptures are in Washington, in the museums, probably New York too. Francisco Zúñiga. My father has this all this background. My family from the side of my mother's grandmother, they are from no, from the grandmother's side, yes, they're French and Spanish,
Uh-huh.
and immigrated to Cuba. But from the side of her grandfather, they are actually from Holland, which are probably Sephardic Jews who then went to Curacao. From Curacao, they immigrated to Cuba. From Cuba to Mexico, one of them, when they went to Mexico, that's where my mother's mother was born, to El Paso, Texas. And actually, the irony, we inherit everything. That's also my thing. We inherit good and bad things. I have a lot from my grandfather. It's first of all from my great grandparents. First one, the artist, is a famous artist, the one that was in Cuba.
Right.
The one from French. He has a French last name. He became a painter and an architect and designer of scenography for theater, and also worked with the Porfirio Diaz, the dictator, beginning of the 20th century. He worked to do some buildings, and also he built something, a theater in Alicante, Spain. But his work of art is in the Museum of Matanzas, Cuba. He's well known.
And what is his name?
Se llama Amerigo Rubier.
Rubier?
I'll send you the complete name. I'll send you a link. And he actually worked with Fortuny. Fortuny is a very famous designer in Venice. It's a palace in Venice. That's 2 blocks. I'm going to start crying from where my father was born. There's a Fortuny palace, and that's my father, where my father was born. But Fortuny, to see the things that get connected, because this is my father from Venice. So Fortuny worked with this great grandfather Rouvier, and painter, architect, designer of theater, who left something in Alicante, Spain. And then from the side, so that's the side that I have the art. Right. From the side of my mother, which is the side of the Jewish, the one from Holland, Curacao, Cuba. Right. First of all, this sense of, I told you, of love, of quality, of good cheeses, wine, good clothes, but also this sharpness. I think this sensitivity, intellectual sensibility to literature and the arts. My mother has that special sensibility. And then on the side of my mother's Herrera family, I'm going to just define it, because you see the mother is Dania, the father is Herrera. It's actually revolutionaries from Mexico who were very strong figures in the revolution. Right.
So you have like a really strong family history and a strong knowledge of your ancestors. I admire that you know that much about your family. How do you think that your family's experiences with the revolution, how does that inform how you're seeing what's going on in America today?
The way I am with COVID is it's almost the intensification of this sense of surreal what I have lived in the United States. That's why it's so important for me to get away periodically, because I feel in a very individualistic, isolated society. So for me, intensification, what I was already living in a hermit place. I go everywhere else, I can connect, talk, have conversations. Here, I don't have that network.
Here in America, you mean? Here in Greensboro?
In general, yes. I maybe if I were in New York, would be different, or Chicago, or whatever big cities. But I had a friend who's a poet, and poets have this vision. They're visionary, like artists. And he said to me, "What do you think of U.S. Greensboro?" He said, "This is the future." And that sentence, enigmatic sentence, represents really what I think it is. This is this surreal environment, which I saw in a movie. Tarkovsky has his movie, The Stalker, and it's very surreal, where they live, the police are everywhere. It's brilliant. He's a Russian master of the film. It's that where we're living, but I sensed it already. I'm also, because I'm an artist, I sense also the future here. So to me, COVID it's science fiction, but I already saw it in how I live, which is very strange. And whenever I went to Paris or anywhere, I tried to communicate how it was in the US. It was hard. It was lost in translation, because I was talking about a fictive situation. And so now everybody's, boom, all of a sudden, the platitude or flatness is engulfing everybody. The future is taking over everybody. So that's my comment about that. Regarding the racial thing, the fact that I have an empty neighborhood right here. First of all, where are the African Americans here? It's all white. Nobody, I don't see people. That's why I wrote that poem. I don't know if I told you the poem on Greensboro, which is in this, the 27 Views of Greensboro. If you read it, that's what I thought. Is this surreal situation where the streets are empty, and that's what I talk in the poem, in the 27 Views of Greensboro. The poem is called Greensboro. And where are the I describe the African Americans and the slavery at the roots of trees trapped, because that sense when Obama came to Greensboro and the downtown filled up,
Yes.
I had a vision. This is their land, and at the same time they're rendered invisible. So
Right.
so to me, what is happening is not, to me, what I'm saying is not surprising. I've been part of Democracy Greensboro. It's a great organization in town. They have been denouncing the death of Marcus Smith, and I hope this goes public, because he was dead at the police hands, and then the city council didn't do anything about it, and they haven't done about it. So I feel an obligation, ethical obligation, to do something to my community, and that's why I support democracy. I wish more people go part of Democracy Greensboro, and I admire Hester Petty, who also every Monday would go to protest in front of the city council. And so the racism is in the bones. Let me say that I'm Not Your Negro. That's a great, brilliant documentary.
Right.
And so in my classes, I am, as you can see, I am the kind of person who's going to bring a turmoil in the good sense, I hope. Yeah. But sometimes I'm not liked because of that. And even the sense how I have in my clothes right here, that's who I am. You know, I am who I am. Like I'm transparent in the sense. In my classes, I do bring dialogues that are difficult. I bring up dialogues, and so students speak up, and this thing. I want to support the African American communities. For the same reason, I actually bring the level of difficulty high, because they deserve the best.
Right.
I want them to succeed. That is my role as a professor. I want them to have the tools to succeed in this society. This society is theirs as well as others, but they have, especially because of what they have been suffering as a result of this horrendous trade and slavery. Like, you know, the Germans have done their own reflection about what they did with the Nazi, you know,
right.
the Nazism.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
What has happened here? Why have we not reflect? Why don't we give what is theirs and actually compensate them for the opposite.
Right.
So racism hasn't gone overcome, and I am very, very disappointed. In this modern society, or postmodern, modern, supposed to be one of the at the forefront of progress in terms of democratic values. How can you have an organization such as the Ku Klux Klan authorized? How can you have a Ku Klux Klan, a terrorist organization in place? How can it be allowed to be? How can it be allowed to be? And so this is the difference between a place like Germany, where of course you have people that have, sadly now with the immigration, the rise of the right, but doing so, there's a, or even the president, this is not allowed, this should not be happening. Here, it's like free reign. And so that's why this society is not going to progress in any way as long as it doesn't deal with this racism, as long as it brings in all these people, all these groups of people that are at a systemic disadvantage. Because how can you have a good education if you are not eating well? Children are abandoned. These people are mistreated. We need to clean up this society. And as long as we don't do that, we're gonna, what are we? We're gonna have more and more instability, ugliness. It's contradictions. It's contradictions. We cannot progress in whatever concept you understand of progress as long as we don't bring and fold and embrace those people that deserve absolutely the best. This is my message, okay? Yes. We are all in color. I don't see, I mean, also, by the way, the concept of color is racist here in the US. It's about how color you are. If you look at our backgrounds, I'm going to tell you, maybe I have probably African descent also ascended because of the immigration things, because of Mexico, because I was in Cuba.
Most of us do, right? Most of us are a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different races. And I wish that everyone in the country would have to take a genetic test to see what their actual racial makeup is, because then maybe there'll be a slight change in some people's viewpoint. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it will take
I don't think
for things to
that's
change.
about knowing whether it's almost this idea that you have to put, it's an ugly situation. It's also the justification of, oh, the poor. It's okay to have poor people. It's justifying oppression, justifying that some people, like right now, the very few corporate, like really like, how can you have, and this is the last comment I make, how can you have health companies, insurance companies making billions and billions and billions of profits? That is unethical. How can you have those corporations allowed to be polluting the environment? And you know what? It's suicidal, because those people that have those billions and billions, they only have one lifetime to live. Those people, we have a lifetime to live. If you pollute the water that you drink, you pollute it for yourself and for others. We only have one life. We are all vulnerable. We are all fragile. What are you going to do with so many billions and billions and billions and billions of problems when you have, how do you live with your conscience when you have people that are kids and children suffering without the most basic thing they deserve for a right? Because health is not like something you have to buy. You're entitled to a health, to education, to a decent living. So it's almost like humanity has gotten to a point where it's showing its very flaws at the root. Maybe we are a species that we are suicidal. I mean, we got to a point now where it's suicide, because we have not proposed until now a sustainable project. This is what we have right now is not sustainable.
So you shared a lot about your childhood and the discrimination that you faced growing up when you moved to America, and then you went back home, and then you came back to America. In your adult life, have you personally experienced discrimination? And if so, can you talk about that?
I think it's the cultural differences and everywhere, especially here in the South. I've been in, when I was in the Senate, also in the university, I don't think if a man quietly in a different form, exactly what I'm saying,
yes,
it comes across really, really well. I am the authorized systematically. Even, I'm not going to talk about even other levels where I feel that no matter how good I am, no matter how brilliant I show my work, no matter how much I work, oh, this is not enough. Yes. You didn't do X, Y, and Z. And not only that, you know what I'm not good? I'm going to say it, because I'm not servile, because I'm not fulfilling the role of the domestic obedient woman. It still sounds like a stereotype, but yes, if I'm not the domestic obedient, I'm talking about not in my house, outside, in my job. If I am one who says yes to, to the general in charge, then this is the truth. If I don't obey, I get punished. If I don't obey, I get punished. So it's not as a relationship of equal to equal. Right. And this is how I feel it. It's like, here she goes again, but in the back, she comes again with her voice. So the problem I have, of course, is that I have to learn to be more effective in how I speak, because of course, that makes me upset when I'm not considered, and I raise my voice, and that is like a cycle. Right. But the truth is, no matter what I do, I had a friend who was a lawyer, very brilliant lawyer. She had her own business. She was making millions, whatever. And she was, she hired me to teach her. And she told me that because she had curly hair, she had to flatten it every morning, because the curly hair would say, the femininity would deauthorize her. Yes. So she had to flatten her hair.
Right? Ridiculous. Yeah. How we dress, how we look as women, that's a whole... And everything goes, a whole other hour of conversation.
And everything goes well if we go, bravo, bravo to the men. But let me tell you, there are men, it's true, that are respectful. I was telling a friend recently, I said, I know that patriarchy exists and machismo, because I can tell the difference. When I'm like respected, and there are men in the university, by the way, it's great university. There are men in my house, when my husband also listens to me, or my friends, that I feel this is respect. Right. But sometimes people with the best heart, I'm not talking this is because you're evil or anything, actually the opposite. Even my father was doing that to me. He was screaming at me when I said, you don't scream at me. Yeah. You do not scream. And that's why my father really respected me, because I never allowed him to treat me like he was treating my brother. I was respected. So I'm used to dealing with men that are like that. But at the same time, you know, I can tell now. I can tell, like racism. I was telling my friend, when you feel racism, it's because it's racism. It's not like, oh, I'm paranoid. You feel it. And I had a psychologist who told me, when you feel something, you almost feel it in your gut. Mm-hmm. Like when you feel bad energies, you feel it here. When somebody's treating you with racism, it is real. It's real and it's wrong. The same thing when there's patriarchy, when there's condescending attitude towards you, when there's disrespect. That's why I believe as an artist, by the way, it's not even just words, because I believe in other, I don't want to talk about the sixth sense, but it is. We as poets and artists, we have a deeper sense of things. And we as a species, as human beings, we're not about only what we see. When nowadays a new trend, positivistic trend, that things are measurable, things we see and count 2 and 3 and 4. We have a sense, our senses, animal senses, that tell us more than what we're going to be able to describe and count. It's so we can tell when somebody's despising us, treating us right, you sense it. In the same way, the treatment of women, you know, or people we think are lower, it's real. So we have to work. I'm hope, like in the last 220, I hope that this moment, I was very happy that the African Americans and all of us come together to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. We have to really, like whenever we see abuse, right? We're supposed to say that's it, no? When we see a racist situation, we have to say that's it, no more. Right. We're not gonna let it go, it's normal, whatever. No, it's not normal. We're not gonna let it go. We are human beings, we make mistakes, right? But there are degrees of mistakes. Killing is a crime, you know? Also, not allowing is a crime. There are also systematic crimes. Not allowing a whole population to be benefiting for the opportunities of a society just because of your background. You already have a series of disadvantages that doesn't allow you to get at other places like others do, in places of privilege. You know, all these Ivy League schools and all these jobs and all this money. No, that is also a crime. So we're living in a crime, and I don't want to be complicit. So I want to work within my means, in my classes. I want to work with giving the tools for knowledge. And I want to do my art also, because art, like I said to you, provides a moment or a space for reflection, imagination, the possibility of other worlds, and also living in the present moment. The sense of our spirituality, the sense of our power to see beyond and do things beyond are actually beautiful and pleasurable in community. So that's what art gives you. It's actually nothing where it's secondary or at the moment where you're doing it, when you're living it, when you're seeing it, when you're contemplating it, you got, wow, this is who I am. I have dignity as a human being, and I am beyond all this ugliness. I am up to this beauty that is liberating. So that's why art gives you liberation and opportunities to reflect for society.
That was amazing. That I agree with you 100%. And I think that's a really good place for us to wrap up. You actually brought tears to my eyes there. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Leah. Thank you for all your support. I'm so actually privileged to be part of this organization, because it's such in all these people I met, the idea of aging and art, and also for giving us a break right now. I was going to ask you, eventually, of course, we go back to paying and everything, but I appreciate so much you giving us that situation of support and keeping up the sense of community, because that's actually what brings us in the building. Because I could do art in my house, whatever, but it's the idea that we are in a community there, sharing stories, sharing our projects, giving each other energies, nourishing from each other. So that's a beautiful project. I hope you get support from the community, from the city, from regarding the building. so that we can contribute.
As a nonprofit, particularly arts nonprofits, nonprofits in general, really, we were just catching up after the big recession, and now we're hit with this. So it's running a nonprofit is like being on a roller coaster. You have some successes and things are great, but you have those dips and income, and this is not like anything we've ever seen. So as an organization, as a leader of a nonprofit arts organization, my aim is to make sure we continue to provide that community connection. I think that it's, my duty to also do what I can through this organization to help make change, to record history as it's happening, to share as many voices as we can, and particularly from people who have lived experiences where they can share lessons, where they can say, these are similarities, this is what we could do. The arts can transform, right? We can have a different kind of vision. We can see a different kind of future because of the creative spirit that we all have. And so I want, that's what this is about, is really sharing those voices and trying to just put out there images and stories of people that others may not know about, to humanize them, to let people see how prevalent racism is. There's a pandemic. People are risking their lives to go out and protest the fact that just because you have dark skin, you can be killed.
These things are systemic.
There's so many of them. It feels overwhelming. It feels like, how can we ever make change? Right. When it's so deeply embedded in our society in so many different ways. But I feel like now is an opportunity for people to come together and force change.
Yeah. I believe in changes when we do it together, and we have to be at it, not like, oh, it's too much, we're not going to do it. Right. We need to face it. It's our responsibility. Otherwise, we are complicit,
I agree, yeah.
I don't want to be complicit with an ugly thing, because I have also my own, account to give at the end of my life. I mean, what have I done for others? Maybe also the message would be, the last one is that people should vote.
Vote. I'm with 100%.
Yeah. Because the democracy of a society is not granted or given. It's made up of people's intervention and participation at the local city level, where the city council be there, participate, but also in votes. People say, people's corrupt system. Well, you make it more corrupt by not voting, because the moment you don't have the voter, you have no democracy. The foundation of democracy is that people go to vote. So, and participate in the processes. So that's what I'm getting, that people are, especially those that we feel we are oppressed, those who are oppressed, mostly who feel that they have no hope, please vote, 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 vote. We need a change.
Well said. I agree 100%. All right. Thank you so much. I will talk with you soon. Stay well.
Yeah. Thank you for talking, and take good care of yourself too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.